pulling up all the files about the arachne, I begin to put them away, and I tell my niece, trust me, there are far worse things than the arachne out there. And besides, I told your cousin, my nephew, about a few of them, including the arachne, and I guarantee because of that, he's being safe when dealing with his dates, just in case he doesn't want to end up on someone's plate. That would be bad. And then I'd have to go and do, well, an extermination mission. You don't want guys like me to do that. It's very messy. Yet it seems like she didn't understand what I was saying and demanded to know what could possibly be worse than the arachne. That's when I pulled out a few more files, one of which was exceptionally thick. And I said that all these go together. She looked and was surprised. And she began to open the first one, and she saw bones. Bones on the wall. She thought it was some sort of haunted house at first, but then she read the title and realized this was not a haunted house. I informed her I got a contract which paid exceptionally, and that's why most hunters didn't want to go in. Seeing how much money, it makes them real nervous because usually you wonder, am I getting paid enough to die? To me, the money sounded good, but I expected extra bonuses, and they looked at me sideways. What type of extra bonuses are you talking about? How about hazardous oversight, schmuck? You guys have done this before. You promised us $20,000 and it should be a $150,000 job. So how about this? And they all looked at me strange when I demanded 20 times as much pay for each hazardous oversight. I mentioned that after all, hey, we're going into the catacombs. You can't guarantee squat down there. I've heard from enough guys who've actually gone down that it can be very weird. When I said this, my niece is like, why would it be weird down there? I probably looked at her in a way that got her a little nervous when I said, look, it's a cemetery from a planetary multi-species reset of this planet. A time when survivors had to bury the dead before predation took everything from them. In that time, creatures that simply scare the crap out of you would roam the land, the seas, the skies, even beyond that. Okay, and it was just bad. The catacombs were a tomb for sure, but they were also meant for something else. The catacombs themselves, being underground, saved a lot of people, and these are the folks who separated themselves on purpose. But they also, they needed a place to butcher the only edible source they had. My niece looked at me and cocked her head sideways, not understanding what I was saying. Then I told her that after the reset, the only thing left to consume for at least humanity was, humanity. And you do what you have to survive. If you're looking at either complete extinction or doing something that you're absolutely going to hate yourself for, guess what? You're going to do what you hate. And the caves also created a natural refrigerator, which means once they dried everything, they didn't have to worry about spoilage. It was also a good place to preserve meat because of that, and nothing, absolutely nothing went to waste. And because of that, the only thing that remained of the dead were the bones. At that point, she looked down at the pictures, and she actually started to shake. I told her that because of this, there's a bit of energy left down in there. Certain energies that most don't understand, most don't want to understand because it scares the living bejesus out of them. Although, just like any other energy source, it doesn't matter if it's electrical or nuclear or just simple biological energy. Once you understand it, it's not so horrifying. And, the kicker is, you hear how a whole bunch of people have raves in a cave down there? Over time, so many have actually entered. They've actually siphoned a lot of the surface energy, and it's just gone. There's one issue, though, and that's when she looks up with eyes of sure fear. I said, look, when you go deeper in, the deeper down you go, that's a very, very different story. She goes back into the files, and I give her a minute to actually read some of the papers. I can hear her moving them very quick, trying to take quick Cliff's notes of what's going on. And she even reaches over and looks at some of the other files, and it's like, this doesn't make sense. Then she asked me what I did down there. So look, it was a simple recovery mission. And much of the catacombs are actually still unexplored. We haven't actually got the drones down there to just go through every single area, because every time they go down, well, they hit that funky energy and they seem to just short out and fall. Most of the guys I know, that was their job, going in and getting the drones out. But since they already had all that recon from going in, it was easy. Go in, grab the drones, and get out. But because you can't get drones to a certain level, well, you got to send folks down there. And well, the terrain is very odd. Some places are really wide. Some places are so narrow you can't get through. And due to the terrain, well, we had to bring a lot of gear. In particular, 10, at least minimum, 10 different types of light sources. I mean, this could be matches, lighters, glow sticks, flashlights. We even saw one guy bring that funky rock that smokes and you burn it. It's just crazy. 3 different maps each, just in case we get separated. And of course, all the other fun stuff that we got to bring. We were pretty loaded down heavy, but you know what? We had to go in, we had to get folks out, and that's what they pay us to do. My niece just looked more and more into the file. She was listening for sure, because I saw her shake her head a little bit as I spoke, but she was still focused on the files as she continued to read. I asked if she wanted me to keep going, and she just looked up and goes, "Yep, keep going, please." So I told her about on the way down, we didn't have to worry too much. At least down to at least the 7th layer, or you could say sub-level. At that point, we felt it. It set warnings off inside me. Something was off. It's just that danger warning. You know you're being watched. You know there's something around, something that can cause you harm, but you can't figure out where it is. You can't just point there and say, it's right there, and then you shoot it. It's not that way it works. And at least half of us felt it at the same time as the group just stopped. All of us just stopped. And the rest of us kind of looked at us and was like, kind of joked, calling us weaklings and pussies and yada, yada, yada. The standard tease the person out of fear stuff that everyone does. However, once we got to the 9th level, we were all on high alert. Not only that, but our comms were spotty at best. We had to switch over to a much powerful comm systems. Not to mention we had to set down the repeaters. We didn't know the repeaters were going to be there. It's a whole mess. And as we got down into the 9th level, we started seeing symbols. Symbols that, look over here, leaning down, pointing at one of the pictures. You see these symbols here? These have been removed from every single text we can find. These are extremely dangerous sigils. And they're more or less a warning at that point of what's up ahead. And one of the guys began to freak the hell out. He recognized one of them, and he just stood there staring at it, and he was just shaking uncontrollably. And I swear, I thought he was going to piss himself right there. And he wanted to return. He wanted to get straight to the surface. He was just saying, nope, don't want to go. And, well, he couldn't return by himself. It was too dangerous to do that. So he had to keep coming with us. And we had to make sure he was at least in the center of our group as we traveled, because he was just so scared. And when we were reaching the 13th level, the level that should be where the recon team was on, I can honestly say I was trying not to piss myself. Because as we walked, we noticed something. This is where I pulled up one of the files and slid it towards her. So we noticed a chest buried partly into the wall. It was strange. It was just out of place. What was this one piece doing here? It was odd. It was really old. Not old isn't leather bound like you'd see on the Titanic. I'm talking wood and metal. Like one of these where the keys are the size of your hand to open it. And as we got closer, of course, we pulled up our flashlights and we examined it, and it's slightly ornate. John notices and he gets real close. And we ask, "What are you doing, man? What are you trying to do? Hump the damn thing?" He says, "Well, I do like feeling chests, but I swear I can smell gold and jewels in this thing." We keep reminding him that we don't have time and we're already pretty heavy on equipment right now. He just looks at us and says, "I can pick a lock. Take me 30 seconds, less than that. Just give me that much and we'll be on our way." I remember going, "Fine, whatever. You 30 seconds, let's go." Everybody else was checking their watch. And sure enough, he pulls out a small crowbar ready to break the lock. He actually drove that crowbar in. I swear that thing had to be sharpened down to a knife's point. Cranked hard, popped it open, reached in with his other hand, and immediately loses the hand. As it turns out, as John screams as his arm is now gone, cut off clean at the shoulder, we realize what it was. It was one of these. You guys call them mimics. We call them a Houdini because they just show up and disappear whenever. And there's Jean just bleeding out on the floor. And oh boy, unfortunately, we couldn't stop that. He bled out in under a minute, took the artery and everything. And that freaking Houdini actually slurped up his arm, just enjoying it. And all I could do at that point, because I didn't have direct line of sight on that mimic, but that little Houdini bastard, oh, I wanted to hurt him. Because there's Jean thrashing around on the ground so much we can't even save him. And, well, let's just say, as that thing just sat there waiting for another one to get close, we reclassified that Houdini. It is now considered a number 2 pencil for all the lead we put into it. I think I dropped 2 mags into that thing myself. And, yeah, I do have to say this. It's a good thing we had those specialized helmets because firearms get very, very loud down there. I mean, there's no place for the sound to go except right into your ear canal. That's when my niece looked up. "Is that why you're deaf in one ear?" No, that's a different story. We'll talk about that later. Andrea couldn't stop cursing, and he was just pissed. Although I don't really understand Italian very well, I do know what the curses are, and as we were walking, I swear he just did not stop. Not until we heard yelling from another area ahead, and all of us were instantly on guard as we moved forward. Slowly moving just as we've been trained. The forward two with their weapons straight forward. The ones behind them with their weapons around the side just enough where they didn't actually give a fratricide, but they could still engage. Everybody else watching the walls. The 2 in the rear constantly spinning around and checking behind us to make sure nothing was sneaking up on us. We moved forward carefully, silently. And that's when we entered a large room. This room looked like it was carved right out of the rock. Cathedral-like ceilings, massive, had to be a good 200 feet around, almost perfectly circular. It was strange. We could see pillars along the sides, and we started moving in slow. We could see that there were bodies around, and we could hear things too. We moved up slow, and we found the recon team and the researchers they were supposed to be protecting. Of course, we were not told about the researchers. And, well, needless to say, they were so much worse for wear. I mean, you don't just run up to the wounded because you don't know what the threats are, just in case. Just in case one of them turns out to be another one of those damn Houdinis. One of the recon team's bodies and 2 of the researchers were actually Houdinis, and yeah, it's pretty easy to tell. All you really have to do is cause them some sort of pain. Step on their hand, kick them in the balls, twist a titty or something like that. Anything that causes sudden and abrupt pain, and these things will react. They will not be able to hide it. They're expecting you to be nice and calm and walking up. They do not want you ready to hurt them. They do not like pain at all. And once we got rid of those little Houdinis, we looked at the rest and, oi, both male and female had gotten brutally attacked. And yet, one item stuck out, literally. All of them had not just been beaten down, not just stabbed, not just slashed or bitten or clawed or whatever, but they had all been assaulted with enough force to break bones and actually damage internal organs. Looking around for the violator, we all got very, very nervous because, we don't want to end up like that. We kept looking around, couldn't figure it out. Like, crap, what did they summon something? What the hell's going on? And then that's when Chen said something. He simply said, look up. We looked up high, and on those stone pillars stood a bunch of stoners. My niece interrupted, said, stoners? I thought you said people don't party in that deep. Wrong type of stoners, I told her. These were what you call gargoyles. She's like, wait, you mean those things from TV, those little cartoons? Oh, these are not cartoons, I told her. Not in the slightest. This is very, 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 very bad. And we didn't want to be around when these things suddenly got active. We immediately started treating the wounds and tried to leave because once these things open up, they're not going to let us. They're not going to want to let their prey leave at all. They're going to want to play with their food a bit more, which is why we can't stay. That's when she asked me, how come they didn't just jump on you then? I calmed down a little bit and told her that stoners are only active for a few hours every night and almost never during the day. And all at once they become active, they will dive down and kill everyone. That's their duty. That's why they were created. But not before breaking every bone in our bodies. And unfortunately, at the look at those researchers and recon, looks like they're going to break the bone's pelvis first. And what's worse, we just can't start shooting at that point. She was amazed. What do you mean? Why don't you just shoot the dang thing? Like blow their heads off or something? Well, it would be that simple, I told her. But here, look, as I open up the file and show her. You see these three right here? If I was to walk in and blast this one, what do you think the other two would do? Well, they're still rock, right? They would just sit there, wouldn't they? Oh, absolutely not. They understand a threat. And they know that if one is damaged, especially damaged pretty much beyond repair, they're going to come at you. And there's only one thing we could do. What was that? She asked me. Well, we swapped out our regular rounds for armor-piercing ammunition, which normally everybody carries at least one magazine of it. And we stood in the center of the room, faced out, and aimed up towards each of them, making sure everybody had a particular one in sight. And we counted down. We had to fire simultaneously and hope these big bastards don't fall on us. And there was the countdown, 3, 2, 1, fire. And you just hear 12 gargoyles scream in pain, at least those that still had a head. And then they come off their pedestal and they fall. And unfortunately, they're falling about 50, 60 feet. So you definitely don't want to be underneath them when that happens. Some of them actually basically a last act of defiance, will actually jump at you, trying to squish you underneath. So you definitely have to brace for any type of impact. Once you see them fall, you're diving out of the way and just hope when you dive, you don't get squished. And, it worked. It worked. They landed, most of them just pounded into powder right there. Landed right on the ground, and they shattered like any other rock. It was glorious. And many guys celebrated, and I'll admit I did too. But that's a dumb thing to do. Well, why is that? My niece asks. Well, because right after that, we heard a growl. And I swear, Mick, that friggin' Australian son of a bitch, I just heard him whisper, "Clever girl." I guess he was looking straight at this one. I don't know if he noticed it was female or whatever, because that thing just all of a sudden, by the time I saw it, it's coming right at us. And I'll tell you what, I'm just going to unload right into them. And we all just started firing. It was bad, but I'll tell you what, this thing was quick. For its size, they're very, very fast. They use their wings to propel them even faster, sometimes to protect them. They'll sacrifice their wings, no problem. They'd rather not. But oh, dear Lord, this bitch was actually so fast, she swooped over and took two of our guys out without even thinking, and even stomped down on one of the researchers. It was just bad. It was just, ugh. Of course, we scattered, and here we are trying to shoot this thing to pieces, but you got to get a really good shot to get basically a kill hit on these things. She even took flight, used the pillars for cover. It was bad. This thing was really smart, too. She grabbed one of our guys, thought she could use him as a shield, holding him up, and then when she realized we were going to shoot through him, she decided, screw it, and she bit him in half. I mean, literally in half. The whole jaw went right over his torso, chomp. And then she just kind of hacked out the guts. I guess she doesn't like the taste of carbon or whatever, because she ate his magazines too. I would have laughed if the whole situation wasn't horrifying. This thing is moving around so quick, it's going to get me eventually. At least that's what I thought, until it grabbed Mick and lifted him up, just hands right around his torso, lift him up, head down. She's going to chomp his damn face off. That's until I came out of cover and unloaded into her ass. It was actually funny to hear a female gargoyle yelp like that when she literally got some right up Main Street. Immediately dropped him, and unfortunately, you could hear bones crack, but he is alive. She picked up a recon member and actually ate him whole at that moment as I'm reloading, and you could actually watch her regenerate. Oh dear God. As I reloaded, I actually did call to God. I actually started praying at that point. And I must have been loud. I seriously must have been about screaming. Then I hear from one of the other pillars, Lucas, yell at me, "Hey, dumbass! That won't work! This is devil's territory!" Then it occurred to me something. I remembered hearing about one of these, and I needed to know if it worked. I stepped out and I started invoking the name of the devil herself. And I mean every name I could think of. It didn't matter. I just kept chanting them. In the name of, in the name of, in the name of. Eventually, the gargoyle just stopped, turned to me, and smiled. And she's standing there, 12 plus feet tall, just turns to me, grinning with those strange tusks, flails her wing, and I don't know if she was trying to wag her tail or if she's going to use it as a weapon or whatever. All I know is she was showing her entire body, and this is when I guaranteed it was female, and as though she was trying to show it off, as though, hey, look, you can't kill me. You see how I regenerate? I mean, I will admit, not a bad body shape, which is why half the recon team received the whole death by snoo-snoo action. And then I realized, oh crap, I might have done something stupid. But that's when Mick tossed a rock at her head to simply call her attention away from me, thinking maybe I had a secret, something I could do. And then it turned, looked at her, growled, and one thing you don't want to do to a female gargoyle is call her ugly. Oh boy. Oh boy. You really, really, really don't want to do that, because she got pissed. She started saying something in the old Latin, and I don't understand it fully, but the way her arms moved, I swear it was something on the lines of, how could you call this body unattractive? But still, she got pissed at him because he just kept calling her all sorts of nasty shit. And he just was like, oh crap, when she started charging and swung at him. But when he dodged, her hand lands right next to what looks like some sort of crate. A crate that is clearly out of place. The Houdini's large teeth just opened wide for a second and clamped down on that gargoyle's hand as hard as it could, digging so deep it went right into the stone. And she may be mostly rock while she sleeps, but she is, slightly squishy now, which means those teeth are going to go in and they're going to cause a lot of damage. And not only just one row of teeth, but rows and rows and rows of teeth. As the gargoyle was howling in pain trying to get this thing off, she actually steps over to another one. This one looked like one of our crates, but we don't put orange stripes on our equipment. No, that doesn't make sense. It was completely out of place. And this thing latched right onto her leg, and I mean hard. This one was a lot larger too. And without wasting a moment, all of us rush up and place our small breaching charges on her body. We had them, but try getting close to one of these things without it trying to kill you. And as soon as we got it on, it latches on with its own little small drills. I swear that gargoyle knew for just a fraction of a second that she was in a lot of trouble, as each one of those charges, being a small shape charge, blew holes into her body. Or her parts off. It was not so fun to watch as one of her legs goes flying, a wing comes off, and one of her arms just kind of separates halfway. And it seems as though, even though she looks like stone, there are some tendons in there. And she just starts screeching and starts thrashing, but she comes back to herself just in time to use what's left of her arm to stab that freaking Houdini, rip him off her hand, and as she's looking at the damage, she doesn't realize where someone, and I still to this day don't know who, had jumped on her back, put a shape charge on the back of her head, and jumped off. I swear she probably had about 2 seconds to realize what was about to happen before kablooey, and her head was gone. At that point, we used solid sabot rounds on the last of these Houdinis just to make sure it was down. And I personally was almost out of ammo at that point. And we realized we gotta leave, and we gotta leave right then, right now. And we grabbed the 3 survivors and we had to bolt as fast as we could. Of course, not forgetting to grab whatever data was there, because I'm not coming down here for a second time. Shoving all the hard drives into our pockets, we immediately started picking up the stretchers and getting the hell out of there. Confused, my niece asked, why wouldn't you go back down there a second time? I mean, you killed them all. Did I now? I don't think so. You don't know much about stoners at all. I thought you were reading these files. Here, look. See this right here? Yeah, regeneration. What does that mean to you? But you killed it. It can't regenerate once it's dead. Maybe if it's flesh and blood, but these ain't flesh and blood. Stoners are created. They're a type of golem. They don't have a core like the other types do. They don't have writing across their head like another type does, but these are still golems. As long as there's stone around, they will regenerate. It might take a while. Like the ones that went kersplat and are dust might take, I don't know, a year or so. Maybe more before they finally get themselves together. But they will. They're more, how do I put this? They're more crystalline than they are stone, which means they will actually continue to develop. They'll continue to regenerate. They'll just get much, much bigger. However, I almost feel bad for the ones that we shot first. Why is that? She asked. Because that big girl there? Oh no, she was obviously the boss babe, and she is going to beat the crap out of those guys. I mean, just wow. You've never seen these folks fight, and I've never seen it in person. I've seen a video, and they are, how do I put this? You know how bears will try and rip each other to pieces? She says, yeah. I look at her and say, that's the PG version of what they'll do. They'll actually slowly rip each other apart painfully, slowly. It's like a torture. It's crazy because they know they can't kill each other. They can just cause each other immense pain. Oh, that's horrible, she says. Oh, trust me, it gets very, very interesting. Returning to what I was talking about, I told her that on the way out, we actually realized something. And when she looked, and before she could even ask what, I said, well, that's when I screamed, frickin' Houdinis. We made a mad dash towards the exit because John's body was just gone. We knew something else was down there because something ate him. Something ate Jean, and we have no idea what, and we were not going to stick around to find out. And unfortunately, we got lost twice on the way out, but we did make it out, obviously, because I'm standing here. She asked me, did the researchers and recon guys you got, did they survive? I just said, as far as I know, yeah, we had a medical team there. They took over, and I literally turned and said, I need a freaking drink now. And thankfully, it was a little bourbon and holy water just to make sure everything was cleansed out of my system and to calm me down because my heart was beating not only up to my throat, but all the way down to my feet. Then she asked, why didn't these mimic Houdini things just kill those gargoyles while they slept? I grinned a little bit at this. Again, read the file, I told her. Look at this. And I flipped a few pages and said, look, you see this? Mimics cannot climb. I'm going to say this again. Read it again. What does it say? Mimics cannot climb. Okay, these Houdinis can disguise themselves all they want, but if you ever think one is following you, just go down or up a cliff or up a tree even. They can't climb. They can't even climb stairs. They just kind of slime themselves along. They don't have that really sticky path like you see with slugs and snails and stuff like that, or they'd be so much easier to spot. They really don't put all that much mucus out, if at all, which means, yeah, don't ever get on something that is completely out of place. In particular, never take the stairs in the forest. What do you think happens to those people? That's one of those Houdinis. It's going to cause you to get all sorts of weary because they're going to put out some sort of pheromone and you're going to get dizzy. And as soon as you're like up towards the top of the stairs, something's going to open up and below you is going to be nothing but teeth. You don't want that. Not so fun. So if you see one, just stay away from it. Take the pictures, stay a few feet away from it. And usually they won't attack in the forest if there's more than one person around. That being said, yeah, that's still dangerous. Then she says, compared to some of the other things you're telling me, they don't seem that bad. Well, perhaps I forgot to mention a few things. First, gargoyles always respond to their master when their master is being talked about, meaning that the gargoyles were actually, well, hiding something demonic in there. And by the way the room was set up, I'm pretty sure we were fighting on a portal to hell. And I hope you haven't forgotten, or do I have to remind you of what happens when you die in one? At that point, she realized about dealing with the witches and what happened when I had sent one of the old mosquitoes right into one of those portals. I continued by saying, remember, secondly, that gargoyles can't die. They regenerate and then they simply wait. They wait until intruders enter. They also have very, very good memories. If I enter those catacombs again, I don't even want to imagine what they would want to do to me. I mean, they'd probably actually leave that area, chase me down, drag me back into their nest just to slowly rip me to pieces. Not just to feast on me, because honestly, I don't think they really need to eat, but that's never been confirmed or anything. It just means their regeneration goes faster. It could be life force that they're sucking down. I don't know, because I've never seen a gargoyle turd. So I don't know if they can actually process any of that. All in all, I just don't want them to come after me. They are very... It took, what, a dozen of us to take one of these things down? What am I going to do on my own besides get squashed or something? That would be bad. That would be very, 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 very bad. Well, at least the mimics will stay down there, she says. You're kidding, right? Again, look into the file. Look at right here. See these teams? Their team numbers? This is their job. They hunt down these Houdinis. Hell, one of the guys was telling me how they found an entire house that was one of these things. And it only by sheer luck did they get away. Okay, these things are not to be trifled with. So they can be anywhere, she says. Just be careful of something that is out of place. And if it's out of place and you start getting a certain feeling like you're being watched or something, you can just leave. They're slow. They move very, very, very slow. But you still don't want to be caught up by one. Or if you think there's one, just have somebody there on standby. Then she asks, so what is the strangest one? I thought for a second, and for a moment I was about to mention the house again. But then something else came to mind as I said, not the strangest or the strongest, but I remember when Billy came back all upset. He's been on one of these teams for a long time. And one of these Houdinis was actually a 1957 Chevy. He showed me a picture. Beautiful car. And the weird thing is, it would never actually take the owner down. It became so protective of its owner that it would kill and eat anyone. It actually consumed almost all of the local gang members in the area and beat the hell out of one guy who just was lucky enough to get away. I'm pretty sure this one's the only mimic that can move quick. Wasn't quite as lethal as some of the others, but whew, I swear it was strange for sure. And last I heard, they actually had to send this thing through a car crusher just to kill the damn thing. I mean, what'd they do? They blew it up, they shot it, they burned it, they wrecked it, they ran it over with a bulldozer. Still didn't kill the damn thing. It just kept reforming. It was just terrible. At that moment, I saw the time and realized what time of day it was. We'd been down here for a while. And so, look, all this is going to have to be another time. Okay, we're almost the end of the day, and you should be going home for dinner. So hand me those files, will you? As I put them away, I sent my niece home. She said goodbye and was a little shaken up, but she was okay. I closed the cabinets, made sure I went upstairs to wave goodbye to her. And I thought to myself that, well, I kind of freaked her out enough. Still ashamed to lie to her, though. I actually went down and double-checked to make sure that a certain file was there as well. I remember seeing it off to the side during the fight. It was all dressed in black. Seemed as though the black of whatever it was wearing was soaking itself into the shadows. A ghostly pale face. I almost accepted its power. Whatever it was offering. I could feel it. You don't actually hear it, you feel it. It's though the words come with some sort of pressure. And if I'd accepted it, I would have been in its debt. When I invoked its name, it came up. But the kicker is, when you invoke that many names, everything gets scrambled. You're not actually calling out to just one person. You're not just on one frequency of the radio. You're actually doing a net call to everybody out there. And this one showed up. And I still remember as that gargoyle stood in front of me, right behind her was whoever that was. And I still remember that line from that old show I used to love, that some deals come with too high a price. And I am so glad that whoever whispered that in my ear had reminded me of that, because, oh geez, I swear, that was either the devil's own son or the devil's own daughter. I don't know. And for some reason, when I invoked her, I got this one. And, oh boy, that could have been bad. But you know what they say, if it looks like death, there's only one thing to ever say to him. Not today. Hello, everybody. This is Syntax. Thank you for joining me today on part 14 of The Files. Now, before I go, I need to say that today's winner is Alan Williams. And I also need to send out some humongous thank yous to the supporters of this channel. And they are Prozac and Pancakes, Douglas Scarborough, SS Demon, MTF Guard, Brian Kemp, Guardian Sage, Erica Gem, and Steve Ewing. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. Everybody else, I'll see you on the next one. This is Syntax.
Ejecting!